Okay, we are live. This is an impromptu stream tonight. If I could get you all to let me know in the chat window that you can see me, that you can hear me, that we're doing all right, because I'm not using the fancy mic tonight. I'm actually going to do a little activity here, so I want to be able to talk hands-free and be away from the podcasting mic. So just give me a little shout out, something in the comments. Let me know you're here and watching. I see you. I know you're watching. So just someone give me a thumbs up. Let me know that you can hear me and all is well. And we'll get going here. I am playing around with Restream Studio Pro tonight. We're going to use two cameras. I've got an overhead shot that you can see over here of a cool PTZ cable wrap. We're going to talk about this tonight and what it takes to make one of these. And I'm going to show off. I'm basically going to do it right here on the spot so that you can see what goes into this. I will later post a video that walks through how I did all of this in a much shorter fashion, but I figured if I got to sit here for the next hour, I might as well live stream and show you what I'm doing here and how I'm making this cable. And we'll do it live on the spot. Takes about 40 minutes to an hour if I'm not distracted, but there's a good chance with some of you asking questions, I might get distracted and go off track. But I wanted to show you what we're doing here. These are PTZ cables that are going to have both SDI and Cat6. And this SDI is rated up to 6G, so you could use it if you upgrade later down the road and have 4K output from your cameras. And any questions along the way, definitely throw those in the comment section. I have it up here. That's why I keep kind of looking off to the side. I'm just keeping track of comments and questions. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thanks for letting me know I sound okay. Again, I'll just repeat for anyone jumping on, I'm not using the special mic. So the podcast mic is kind of tucked away back over here. Not using this one today. And it's because I got to work with my hands. And I have 100 feet of cable that is spread out across the floor over here that we're going to get working on in just a little bit. So I need some room to be hands-free and mic-free. So I'm just booming a mic overhead. So these cables, the reason why I wanted to make them was because I actually have a similar cable that I bought as soon as I bought my PTZ cameras. It's a dual snake cable. It's both Cat6 and SDI all in one cable. And you'll see here, we've basically recreated that, but in my opinion, in a better fashion. So the cable that we'll be creating tonight is it's all homemade, and I will list out the parts for you so you know exactly what I did in case you're interested in doing this too. And again, I'll just share with you that a shorter video is going to go out in the next couple weeks here that will walk you through these same steps. But if you want to hang out with me on a snowy, cold Tuesday night when I've got nothing better to do than to answer your questions, then I'm here for it. So the cable that I bought originally with the PTZ cameras, it's very stiff and it's very large. It's not easy to over-under cable wrap. It's not very bendy, so it's harder to get it around corners. I found it on eBay, and shout out to the gentleman that makes those cables. He's like the only person on eBay that makes them, and it was a great option for when I first started and when I first got my PTZs. I got two 75-foot runs on that cable, and they've definitely served their purpose. Now I'm looking to create something that is going to work better for my usage cases and just a little easier to wrap up, a little easier to travel with, packs down a little bit lighter. So if you're just jumping in, let me show you what this looks like. This is the cable we're gonna try to make tonight. Cat6 SDI. It's a very thin SDI. This is Belden 1855 cable, and Cat6 will get some links out to you all if you want to make these later. And then this is all going into a cable loom or a braided sleeve. And then we've used some heat shrink here so that we have at least a good foot or two at the very end of it, so that when these need to separate off to the switcher and to the switch, we have enough space to separate the cable. But for the rest of the cable run from here onwards, it's totally solid. It's just one solid cable. So that's why I wanted to show off tonight, and I'm going to answer questions as I go. This doesn't have to be just about PTZ questions. It can be general live streaming questions. And as I go, I'm just going to show you what I do and how I make these cables. So without further ado, feel free to post some questions for me. And I'm going to say a little hi to you guys. Thank you, David, for jumping on. Frankie, thank you as well. Thanks for being here. And yeah, David says I need to make some SDI cables soon, so this is perfect timing. Yeah, one thing I will say is that I'm not gonna be putting the ends on these. I'm not terminating BNC connectors onto these cables. I did it a long time ago. It's a pain in the butt. Once you know how to do it, it's not too bad, but it is kind of annoying to do that. So with these, I just bought the 100-foot cables. These are all pre-made, so pre-made lengths. Hey, Event Stream team, thanks for jumping on. So yeah, again, if you're just joining me, I'm about to dive in. We're going to make some PTZ cables that look just like this one. And I've got this little overhead shot so I can kind of show you as I go. It's going to get messy, but at least you'll be able to see what I do. And thank you all for joining. Brian, what's going on? Thanks for joining in, Brian. Thanks for the feedback regarding pay-per-view options. You're welcome. You're welcome. And David says, I only made Ethernet before. Yeah, I don't intend on making Ethernet. I would rather just buy a pre-made. The only downside to buying these cables pre-made is that if you actually measure this out, neither of the cables is exactly 100 feet, even though they're advertised as such. And neither of the cables are perfectly lined up. You can see here, they're not the same length on either end. So one little drawback there, but again, like I was saying before, when we make these, we're going to leave about 2 feet or so, maybe 1.5 feet of room so that we can split one of these off to the switcher and one of these off to the switch so that we have just enough space before it becomes one solid cable. What switcher am I using for your live stream? Great question. This is all done in Restream Studio. So I am home right now. All I'm doing is using the Sony ZV-E10. That's my main setup for home, just for Zoom and stuff like that. It goes into the Rode Streamer X. And then I have a mic that's boomed overhead, a little deity mic that's going into the camera. And so that's why you're going to hear some of the room noise. That's why it's not going to be perfectly clean. It's to get the good mic away and over there. Usually it's the Shure MV7, but this is just a little deity for right now because I need my hands free and my face free to chat with you all and show you what I'm doing here. But yeah, everything's being switched from right here in Restream Studio. And I can do this with 2 cameras. So I have an Insta360 camera. That's the overhead one. This is just a webcam up here. Still 4K. Nice little PTZ sort of webcam. And then the Sony ZV-E10 being the main one. And then I can turn them on and off. So if I want to just go back to this view, it's a really simple, just press of the button inside Restream Studio. Cannot recommend it enough. This is a great tool that I love using. And then, when I bring this camera back in, you could potentially change out the backdrops. Like there's all these pre-built options, then you can upload your own. So if I want to change my background here, I can just click a button, change the background. Here's another one. And back to the one that I was using. I just thought this one looked really nice. And you can kind of change the layouts, so you can click and drag stuff around. So I can swap these 2 screens if I wanted to. It's just click and drag right in Restream. And then if I want to swap them back, I just click and drag them again. But it makes life super easy. And so this is all software based, all web browser based. And I'm just keeping the YouTube up on the side to make sure everything stays live and looks okay. But all of the comments from you all coming in are coming into Restream, and I can just see it all here. Actually, I think I can overlay it. And then I would be able to show the new comments. So as you guys comment, actually, if someone else wants to say something else here, feel free, and you'll see this jump up in that comment section. So somebody just type in, hey, hello, give me a thumbs up or anything, and then it'll actually boom, just like that. Frankie, is the network cable fully flexible, and what does it cost? Let me look that up for you on the cable. Look at that. Everybody's commenting. So the cable that I got is from Cable Matters. It's a 10 gigabit per second snagless, 100 feet, Cat 6. They are $25 on Amazon. And if anybody wants to support the channel, then I will link to the Cat 6 cables in the comments. Feel free to use that link. That link supports my channel, doesn't cost any additional to you. That's the Amazon link. And then if anybody's looking for the Belden 1855 cables, I can also go ahead and get you a link to that one as well. Let me get this. They're about $86 for the 100 footers. And again, like I said, if you know how to terminate your own cables, then by all means, my friends, feel free to do that. I have no reason to make my own cables. I don't make enough of them. I'm kind of lazy with it. I'd rather just buy the 100 footer and be done with it. But those two links right there to Amazon, those are to the two cables that I used. And then I'll give you one more link to the sleeving that we used for this. This is the braided sleeving. It comes in a spool like this. So I'm going to show you this in a minute once we get going. And you can see it down here. There's the spool. The spool of that sleeve, it's 100 feet. Make sure you get 3/8 inch, $16 a piece. And then the last ingredient really is a heat gun and some heavy wall heat shrink tubing. This one I got from Home Depot. So that's my my little disclaimer here is that this was not from Amazon, but if you are getting your own, 5/8 inch is what you need, because a 1/2 inch, also known as 4/8 inch, is the width of the STI cable, the connector there. So you need something just a little bit bigger to fit that through. And the important thing is to make sure that this has at least a 3-to-1. I'm using a 4-to-1 shrink ratio to make sure that it shrinks tight enough. You can see it there, and then I sealed it off a little bit with some electrical tape. But to make sure it seals up tight enough. So you want to make sure it's at least 3-to-1, preferably 4-to-1 shrink ratio. Let's answer some more questions. There's a couple people came in with questions. For someone starting out in live stream, do you recommend doing a stream or two for free? I like this question. Thank you for that question. Let me go ahead and take some things off screen here so I can chat with you. Now, K-Music, I don't know your name because it only shows your username, but I'm going to thank you for the question. For someone starting out in a live stream, do you recommend doing it for free? When I first started out, I went off on my own, dove off the deep end, left my job. I didn't do things for free because oftentimes what happens is that when you do something for free, it devalues your own work. And it's one thing to not have a ton of experience, but I think that when you do it for free, you're basically saying, hey, my stuff is worth nothing. And what happens is the client treats it as such. So they will ask and ask and ask. And it also sets that precedent for that first client to always want things for super cheap. So, hey, Kurt. So for me personally, I don't recommend doing it for free. It doesn't mean that you can't do it at a lower price. And especially when you're getting started, you're still learning how to price your stuff anyways. So I think that's okay to start at a lower price. But if it were me, I would not be doing it for free. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that free is going to convince people to invest in it later down the road. The truth is that when you put at least some sort of a price tag on it, they value more of what you're giving to them. So that's my short answer there. So we can eventually get into cables, and I'm happy to talk about this further. Feel free to leave comments on the videos. I have a few videos about pricing your services and things like that. Frankie, I'm sorry you can't stay, but I get it. Near midnight there. Yeah, you're definitely a few hours ahead of me. And yeah, it's going to be a rough drive tomorrow. We had some bad weather here today. So good luck tomorrow on your project. And thanks for joining in for just a little bit. Kurt asks, what if you're doing the free stream for your church? So it's a good question. It depends on how much you value the relationship there. I think there's definitely, there should be an emphasis on volunteer work. I personally volunteered with a local youth group for over a decade. And so I think that volunteering is great. If you are just volunteering at the church on the Sundays and you're already going to be there, then I think that's fine. It's somewhere that you're already going to be. It allows you to add value. It allows you to do something while you're there. And it's kind of that testing ground, that proving ground where you can test gear at. But I would not be just approaching a corporate client saying, hey, I'll live stream for you for free since it's your first one and I'm just getting going. I wouldn't do that. Church is a little bit different. I feel like that's a place where it's run by volunteers. And I would say if it's a place you're already going to be and spending time, then that's one story. If it's you taking time out of your weeks, out of your nights, out of your evenings, your weekends, outside of maybe Sunday morning, then that's where it's time to consider the value of your time, because as your business grows, you're going to realize that your time becomes more and more valuable. And so you don't always want to give that away. You want to incentivize people to pay you for your time and your expertise. So you just want to set that precedent from the start. Alrighty, so about 10 people joining in right now. And I know this was something that I just did off the cuff live here. And I want to get started with making some cables. We're going to make one tonight. I'm going to try to answer questions as I go. And then for anyone jumping in now, the links are in that chat window off to the side. And then we're going to get one of these going. So just to show you, this is our final cable, what it's going to look like. Move this to the side here, get my keyboard out of the way. This is our final cable. I've got some Velcro straps on it right now, just holding it together. SDI, Cat 6, all in one cable. All right, so let's get moving on this. I'm going to slide this off and away. Okay, so the one thing that you didn't see me do before we got started was I collected a bunch of items. So I'm going to share those with you now. The first item is going to be masking tape. Second item, we've got some scissors. Third item this is a skewer, and I'll show you why we're going to use that skewer in a second. Fourth item, it's going to be our heat shrink tubing. This was a 2-pack. I used one of them already. We're going to cut this right in half, and then we'll use this on each end. Some electrical tape, and then we've got our cables. They're down here. So I ran these cables out because they were coiled up, and they don't come very clean. They're not wrapped well when you get them. They're not under wrapped and ready to go. So I laid these out before I jumped on the live stream tonight so that I don't go nuts trying to get started on this project. And the skewer is the first thing we're going to get started with. Brian asked, regarding this cable bundling option, have you noticed any issues with the cable sleeves getting snagged on any materials or furniture? Well, typically we're taping our cables down against the boundary of the room. So we're just going to gaff tape them down. So nothing that this would stick on, no furniture, because we'll typically not have this anywhere near furniture or something that would get dragged across the cable. We're always trying to run this stuff against a wall or in a corner or up and over a doorway. So we really hide this stuff pretty well so that it wouldn't get snagged on anything. Great question. So let me get started here. Again, I am just kind of doing this impromptu. So I'm going to do my best here to show you in this overhead shot how we're going to do this. We're going to start with this skewer, and I'm going to show you a little close up here so you can see this better. Let's see. I want to change up my layout here. Let's go like this. There we go. So now I'm down in the bottom corner. Fun with Restream Studio. So these cables are going to eventually have to fit through this tubing. And individually, each of them fits through. So we can't put them through together. Same thing goes with the cable spool. They're going to have to go through this tubing, and I'll show you how this works in a second here. But we basically don't want these to run through the spool side by side. We want these to run through kind of one after the other. So what I tend to do is just put them kind of one on top of the other. And then we're going to line up our skewer here. I'm going to move this over. Just let me know if you guys are trying to see anything better. I realize I'm doing this with the overhead shot. But my skewer is what I'm going to use for feeding this all through. And I'm just using masking tape to attach this to the skewer. And we'll start with the end connector of the Cat 6 cable. So I also want to be protective of the little clip, the release clip. So we're going to start with the masking tape going around that, protecting that whole thing. And the reason why I use masking tape is so that it's super easy to rip all this off once the cable is run through the loom. All right, so you see that I taped the Cat 6 cable on. Now the next thing I want to do is we're going to tape our SDI cable on. Try not to tangle them up too badly when you do this, otherwise it's going to make for a headache later. All right, so there we go. And I know this looks really ugly, but this is going to make life so much easier when we feed this through our cable sleeve. All right, so that's my skewer. That's what's going to go through the sleeve. I'm going to move my tape off to the side here. And then we're going to get our spool here. So I'm going to show you how I get this started, and then there's a good chance the spool is going to wind up on the floor just because this is 100 feet, and I've got to basically run this all the way through. So that this is the longest portion of what's got to happen here. So tuck in for the ride. Questions as we go, feel free, so I'm not talking the whole time. So the trick with this spool is this has to get compressed in order to expand, because you're probably looking at this and you're like, that is really, really thin. It's 3/8 inch, so it's less than half an inch, which is not wide enough to get over that SDI cable. But if you compress it like so by pushing inwards, think of this like one of those old-fashioned Chinese finger traps. See how it gets larger? It almost doubles in size. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's the move throughout, is we're going to be compressing to get the skewer through, and then we'll be pulling it further along. So hardest part right here, compressing it, getting it over top of the skewer. It's also, the end is, it's been kind of sealed off with heat, so we have to kind of open this up a little bit. There we go. So Chinese finger trap, right? We have to compress it for everything to get bigger. And this is the most annoying part. Once it's over the rest of the cable, we're good to go. So notice how I will always be pulling from this end to compress it inwards. That way this section gets wider, and that's how we get it over top of the rest of the cable. And then this is the challenging part, is just getting this end up and over the BNC connector here. Once we do that, we are golden, my friends. But again, hardest part of the entire build here, right here at the beginning. And it's kind of going to get stuck a little bit. Any questions as we go? Anyone got any live streams coming up you want to share about? Let me know down in the comments section. Of course, this one is fighting me way more than any of the other ones did. The other ones, I just kind of was able to like slide a whole bunch of this on the end. There we go. That's it. All right, so you see what we did now? So now that we're here, this is just going to keep sliding this way. We're just going to keep compressing it this way. And this is the part that's going to probably take me the next half an hour. Especially because I'm doing it on top of the desk, so it's not nearly as easy as when I was doing this in my lap the first time around. And you can see here, this part of our SDI cable, it's not playing nice. There we go. So as you can see, it's just about working this over and over again and working this through. So I'm going to take the spool. It's going to go down on the floor. We're going to get this out of the way here. And we're going to make ourselves an SDI cable. Like I said, this is the boring part. So if you're watching on the replay, now is the time where you can fast forward by like probably a good amount of time. And if you are here for the ride and this is entertaining to you, watching me feed this cable, I'm actually going to probably switch it over and do this from my lap so it's a little bit easier. It's kind of hard to do this on the desktop, but I'm just feeding this in with one hand, compressing it, and then pulling it up and over with the other hand. So let's go ahead and switch out these cameras. I'm going to turn off that desktop overview for now because it's pretty boring. But yeah, once you get going, you just kind of you get into the rhythm of it. I feel like I'm learning how to knit or something. But any questions about live streaming while we're here? Anyone joining in has no idea what I'm doing? I can rehash it for you. It's a quiet night here. It just snowed, so the weather kind of shut everything down. Like I said, super, super boring part. I'll show you again. Swap these two out so you can see it. So I'm just compressing and basically getting a ton of this up on the edge here and then pulling this down the line. And it's tough because it gets snagged every once in a while. It's definitely harder to do on the desktop than it is in my lap. And then we just pull the rest down the line here. Let's see. Brian said, would you use the same sleeve material if you were creating these for an outdoor live stream? I think that's a good question. I would preface it by saying that I probably don't know enough about this type of PET sleeving, this type of plastic material that it's made out of, to say. I think that if I were outside, though, I'd probably want to consider getting like cable ramps. Something that's going to protect all of my cable runs, because there's a good chance you're filming a wedding or some sort of event. And if you're doing that, there's a solid chance that a lot of people are walking around and they could potentially trip over, walk over any of your cables. So you want to protect them. That's what I would say. I haven't had this material long enough to really put it through its paces. So, it seems pretty tough. There, now it's in focus. It seems pretty tough. Like, I can yank on this. It is not going anywhere. And once it's over the cables, it really does make it tougher. But I think there's probably other more what I would consider tactical ways of protecting the cable for use outside. My church uses the switcher program. I am thinking about getting into the ATEM ISO. Will they be able to transfer some of the aftermarket graphics? Yeah, where are the graphics coming from right now? Because with any of the ATEMs, you can incorporate graphics. You've got your media pool, which usually, depending on the ATEM, lets you load in 20 images, if not more, on the larger ATEMs. So, it just depends on where those images are coming from. if you're using something like Pro Presenter for like video playbacks, for church lyrics, anything like that, then definitely you just need to make that Pro Presenter laptop be an input on the computer, or an input on the ATEM coming from a computer. And then it depends on where those graphics are stored. Can you get them out of the software you guys are currently using? I'm not sure what switcher program you're referring to that you might be using right now, but it should, I would imagine it should be possible to pull those graphics and use them again. I would think so. Thanks for the question there. So I'm going to show you real quick. You can see our cable here. So now you can see it's actually made its way over the end of the skewer and down the line. And so as I feed it, it's just going to keep feeding through. It's just going to keep on moving. So I'm just sitting here basically expanding this on this end, getting it up and over the hump of the cable connectors here. This is the hardest, most time-consuming part, and it's going to take quite some time, but I'm answering questions as we go. The switcher program the church uses is for iPhones and iPads. Yeah, it's hard to say because I don't know where it's pulling those images from. If they're images that you've created, then I imagine you could just export those images as PNG files or JPEG files, and then you can bring those into the ATEM. If they're images that are pre-built in some sort of proprietary software or application, there's a good chance you might not be able to get those images out. I don't know that for sure. With that being said, though, maybe look into whether or not the ATEM could feed video into that switching software, and then you can still keep all your same graphics that you have already, and then the ATEM switches the show. Okay, images are stored on the iPad. Yeah, so, just use that iPad to email those images to yourself. You load them in on the computer, and you get the images into the ATEM software control. So that's the application that you want to install when you get your ATEM. And then you can bring in, like I said, up to 20 images, depending on the model of ATEM you use, if it's the minis and the extremes. If it's the higher end switchers, then you get a little bit more. You get up to, I think it's 40 on the ATEM 2ME constellation. And then, yeah, like I said, if you use a software, like if you're using a playback software like Pro Presenter, personally, I like using MIDI. MIDI is my favorite. Then you can bring those images into that software. So, hardest part of the cable process here, just getting this up and compressed. There you go, we can see it. And then bringing this up over the connectors and pulling it down the line. So that's why I'm joining y'all tonight live. What about receiving audio from a mixer? So your ATEM has an option, and I actually made a video on my YouTube channel about this, so if you haven't seen it, you want to look for the ATEM audio settings video that's on my channel, because this comes up a lot. The ATEM has settings in the software to switch between line and mic level. So you want to make sure you're setting that properly based on what you're sending to the ATEM. So if you're sending line level, then you set it to line level. It's that easy. It's a little checkbox in the ATEM software. You go into the software control, and that video that I made shows you exactly how to do that, because that does come up. And some people will plug in their audio mixer and say, oh my God, this sounds horrible, or I can't hear anything at all. There's a good chance it's because you didn't set those settings properly. So that's an easy fix right there. One thing that you could potentially consider doing is, I've been learning more about balanced and unbalanced audio. And that's something that I'm always hiring like an audio person on my live streams. I'm never doing the audio myself. There's always some sort of an audio team there. Either the AV team at the venue is giving me a feed, or my audio guy is doing it so that he can monitor it from there. So, I would just consider getting it. There's a box called the Clean Box. It's from a company named Art, and they're on B&H Photos website. You can get them, and they will help you convert balanced and unbalanced audio to make sure that if you're taking like an XLR cable in, this Art Clean Box will give you that unbalanced 3.5mm output that you can take into your ATEM. And sometimes that really helps people with getting the right sound that they need. Another thing that I'll do sometimes, and I know that the audio guys are going to frown on me for this, but the Zoom Live Track L8 mixer, I like to keep that with me, and I use that for controlling the audio levels in my ATEM. And by the way, if you're just joining us, I'm making a PTZ cable here. I'm not just distracted doing something, playing with a fidget spinner. The Live Track L8, I'll usually run the audio into that before it goes into the ATEM, and then I take XLR outputs from that Zoom Live Track L8 mixer to 3.5mm into the ATEM. And then typically we might add anywhere from like 2 to 3 frames of delay on that, depending on the cameras and the usage case. So check your sync on that too. John Smith. Is your name actually John Smith? Or is that just an anonymous YouTube account name? If it is John Smith, hello, John Smith. We stream from an ATEM to Restream via the Go Live button and always have a tough time with bitrate. Solution. Restream goes to YouTube and Facebook. Yeah, I have seen YouTube get cranky on bit rates. And so the one thing that you want to do is look up YouTube's recommended streaming bit rates. They have it for pretty much every resolution and frame rate on their website. They'll tell, if you just Google it, it'll come right up. It's YouTube streaming bit rates, and they will give you a recommended rate. So I would consider that. If it's going through Restream already and it's hitting Restream properly, then personally, I ignore the warnings and I've never had an issue. It really is just YouTube getting cranky about what it's getting fed. And I think that's going to be something that eventually will be on Restream's side, where they need to be able to adjust the bit rate that's getting restreamed back out to Facebook or YouTube. But when you say that you're having a tough time with bitrate, what exactly are you having a tough time with? So like, you typically want to make sure that your bitrate is lower than your upload speed. So you always want to plug a laptop into that wire connection on the computer, run a speed test, figure out what your upload speed is, and then make sure your bitrate's lower than that. And then from there, if your upload speed is not fast enough, then you definitely need, okay, so you have excellent upload speed, so that isn't an issue, good. So from there, it's typically just YouTube getting cranky about the bitrate. I saw a post the other day, someone was streaming with the streaming, I think it was either the streaming high setting or it was a really high bitrate. They had it set way above 20 or 30 megabits per second. And YouTube doesn't like that. YouTube has a specific bitrate that they want. So for me, I would probably consider lowering it. I typically wouldn't, if I'm using the built-in encoder on the ATEM, which is rare now because I'm usually using a Magewell encoder, I will usually do streaming medium or low, depending on the internet connection. It's very rare that I'll do high. And it's just because a lot of these platforms, I know everybody wants quality. I get it. I hear you. Everybody wants to be able to send 100 megabits per second, but these platforms just aren't made to handle that. So you got to send them what they're asking for. I would double check on Restream's platform suggestions. But if the errors are popping up on YouTube, that is pretty normal, pretty consistent. If it's going to Restream okay, but it's not hitting YouTube and Facebook. That to me sounds like either a platform issue with YouTube or Facebook, or it sounds to me like an issue with Restream. And if that's the case, then you definitely want to get in touch with their support. I'm going to bring this back up for you all to show you how this is going so far. So let me get this camera on here. So I still have my skewer here, right? This is where my braided sleeve is getting put onto the cable. It's just feeding it through. All I'm doing is at this end, I'm compressing this, right? See how it compresses it, makes it wider. And then I'm just pulling it this way over top of the ends. Compress and pull it this way. And you'll notice that as you do that, it does start to get bunched up in some sections, like this. And as you go down further down the cable, you'll see that it does that. So what you have to do is just go through and just pull the rest of it down the line. And you'll see here, like same with this, like I'm just tightening everything down the line as I go. And there's like a huge bunched up mess down here as well. We just pull this. I do that towards the end. I'm doing it a little bit as I go just here on the skewer side, but I'm going to go down the full cable once I've stringed it all the way through. And then I'll do the rest of it there. That's just what I'm doing right now. So if you're wondering what's happening off camera, it's very exciting. Yeah, so YouTube complains about not enough while Facebook and Restream say it's perfect. Yeah. So this is the exact same problem that I've experienced as well. And it's just YouTube being cranky about the bit rate. I think what happens is that Restream has a certain megabits per second that they're saying, hey, we're just going to make everything 5 megabits per second. And we do that because it's going to save on bandwidth. And then, that's what everybody's going to get. And YouTube, of course, gets angry about it. And the stupid warning pops up all the time. But the live stream never shuts down. I've had that warning for like an entire 3-hour live stream. And not once has YouTube shut down. And I just ignore it and the whole event goes off fine. So I think it's kind of one of those wonky things that we just deal with. And, I don't think it's going to break anything. I don't think we're necessarily going to get it fixed. But it's when you're working through multiple platforms, you're trying to please Restream first, right? And then you're trying to please Facebook, and then you're trying to please YouTube. Some good questions coming through. I see PTZ talk in here. Martin says, would you use 2 Canon CRN 300s and 1 XA50 as a wide shot to shoot a video podcast? Well, it is very funny you should ask that, Martin. I have 2 CRN 300 cameras and a Canon XA55 only because the 55 has SDI output. And I use them very frequently on all of my live streams. Now, the fun part is that right behind me here, you can't see it, is actually a CRN 500 that I got last week. I finally took a leap on my PTZ cameras, and I rented it once, loved the quality. There's a massive jump in quality when you get to that camera. So I'm starting to upgrade to the 500s. But I will say that both the large 1-inch sensor, the XA50, is going to be great in lighting. The CRN 300s are going to match that image very, very similarly. Make sure that you give it good lighting. Make sure that the entire podcast is lit. And as long as you do that, then I think that you've got a good look going. It's really, those cameras fall apart with the smaller sensors. I think it's like 1/2.3 inches or something like that. It really only falls apart when it doesn't have light. So as long as you're giving it light, you're good. You're not going to get a huge shallow depth of field. Maybe more on the XA55 because it's the 1-inch sensor. But the CRN 300s, they're a smaller sensor size. So you won't get as much depth of field on those. I know the ATEM Mini outputs only 1080. Have you used an ATEM device to record an interview? Seems like it would be good for recording interviews with multiple cameras. Yes, I have. We did it's either 3 or 4 camera, multi-camera shoot. I want to say it was 3 cameras. And it was a panel interview. So 1 moderator and I want to say maybe 3 or 4 guests. And this was like the one time I did audio on my own, and it wasn't horrible, but it's not my favorite thing to do. And it worked out great because we recorded ISOs. We got everything we needed. And I was able to live edit on the spot, so it saved me a lot of time later. We had a couple little mess ups that we fixed in post. But yeah, huge time saver. John Smith, what's an encoder that you would suggest besides the A10 built-in encoder? I would suggest the Magewell Ultra Encode AIO. There's a couple reasons for that. One, it's the main encoder I've been using for everything for a while now. And that's not the main reason. Let me I can bring it up and link to it here for you guys. And again, the product links on my channel, they just support the channel. They don't cost any more for you to use. I get a very tiny commission, but it's just a way of saying thanks. Magewell has 2 encoders. There's a smaller Ultra Encode SDI. They also have an HDMI model. I'll link to it here in the comments section. And then there's the Ultra Encode. You won't find it on Amazon, but it's on B&H. The Ultra Encode AIO. So let's talk about this guy. And by the way, there's a used one right now. I'm going to send you the link to this. This one on B&H, there's a used one right now. It's $6.99. It's $100 off from the $7.99 price. I bought mine used. Highly recommend saving yourself the $100. But for one, this encoder can encode 4K. So if you get this encoder, then you're going to be future-proofing yourself. This encoder can also encode both H.264 or 265. So again, you are future-proofing yourself with some better options for compression there. You also get the option to mix HDMI and SDI and picture-in-picture side by side. I would probably never do that, but essentially this allows you to put 2 images side by side and stream them somewhere. But most importantly, this can perform 6 simultaneous streams at up to 32 megabits per second. Not that YouTube's going to let you do that. As we just discussed, YouTube gets cranky with like anything over like, I want to say maybe 8 or 10. It supports NDI. It has a 3.5 millimeter audio line in and out. You can record to an SD card that you attach to it or USB external storage. So that's hard drives or a flash drive. Natively streams to, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, all the fun stuff, but you can add in any RTMP stream that you want. It also streams over hardwire connection or Wi-Fi. So it comes with 2 little Wi-Fi antennas you can pop on there. And I believe, I haven't tried this, but I have read that I think you can plug in a little 5G USB dongle, like a hotspot. And I believe you can stream over one of those. That is not something I've played with. These are also mountable, so they come with the little rack mount ears. So you can mount them to a 1 RU rack unit. So just a wide variety of options here. And it basically takes Restream off the table since you can use this one encoder to send out up to 6 different platforms, 6 different streams. That would be my encoder of choice. And again, links in the comments here. You should see that. It's only on B&H. There's one that's used right now. Highly recommend save yourself the $100 if you're going to get it. So my progress here, as we've been talking, is you can see, it's not in focus. So see how this is very thick now along the cable, right? So what I need to do is basically go down the cable and pull this taut. So that's going to put me off frame for about a minute. But the beauty of this is that I am in Restream Studio. So I'm going to put up a 60-second little break video while I go and do this, rest my voice. I'm going to get the rest of this cable going. And thank y'all for joining me. I'm going to keep going. I'll be back in 60 seconds, so don't go anywhere. And we'll keep going on this, and I'll keep answering questions. So just bear with me. I'm going to take a 1-minute break. I'll be right back. All right. Thank you for that quick break. Need to rest my voice for just a moment. Got me some water because we're making a PTZ cable and I'm talking a lot. If you're just joining in, I know that I'm not using the good mic tonight, but I'm trying to show everybody how to make some cables. So I'm just still going along here. This, like I said, this the hardest part with this whole process is just getting this cable loom over top of the cables. It's a pain. Takes about an hour, but once you're done, you can get 2 or 3 of these done in an afternoon, and you speed up as you go along. So more questions coming through. Like I said, I'm going to answer all of these. I'm here at your disposal. And if you hear any noise in the background, it's just me putting this cable together. Martin says, if all you need is 2 camera angles, you can use your web presenter original, connect any 4K capable cameras, and capture a 4K image. Yep. Yeah, you can do that. The new 4K switchers as well. The 4K 8, you could do that. My prediction, NAB show, National Association of Broadcasters, is coming up here in April. We're just a few short months away. And if you look at how they've moved up with their switchers over time, right? Like the A10 minis came out, then the Mini Pros, then the Mini Pro ISOs, then the Extremes. And now we're seeing competitors like, I'm using the Rode Streamer X just for one camera right now, but we're seeing competitors come out with 4K options. I would not be surprised if we start to see a 4K switcher, just a Mini and a Mini Pro maybe. Because look, they've already got the technology for the 4K encoding, right? It's built into the web presenter. So the same encoding that's going to be done, they have the tech, they know how to do it. So my prediction for NAB this year is that we see a 4K Mini Pro switcher. The obstacle, I think, though, is going to be 4K ISO records. Because if you look at how they made the 4K 8 switcher, they made it so that you would have to output every camera to a hyperdeck for recording ISOs. And we know that's a pain. And if you're buying a switcher at a sub $500 price and everybody wants it to do everything, I don't think that you're going to be planning to record 4K ISOs on hyperdecks. So my theory is that we might see a 4K A10 Mini release somewhere the week before NAB, or even perhaps right at NAB, which would be a massive, massive release on their part. And I think the only concern I have around a release like that would be that I want to know that they're really upping their game and they're not just saying, well, we added 4K inputs and outputs. So Blackmagic, if you're listening, do better than that. Give us a better way for doing maybe video playbacks, or give us the ability to add more graphics to our live streams than just the 20 that we're going to pop in to the media pool, because that's kind of a pain. But that is my theory or prediction. And yes, you're right. The A10 Mini cannot do 4K. I've seen, I forget if it was on Reddit or maybe someone asked this on like a YouTube video, but someone did ask, could you take a 1080p stream and upscale it to 4K so that is him making the cables better than buying them? Yeah, good question. Sorry, I got distracted there. John, is hand making the cables. So, by the way, this is way faster to do when you're not also like under the lights trying to stream, trying to show off all of this stuff. Like, it's literally, I'm just sitting here with this thing and I'm just compressing it and pulling it down the line. So for a 100-foot cable, it's not bad. Like I said, it takes like an hour, but yeah, anything longer than this sucks. The fingers don't cramp too bad afterwards because I kind of have it down, but yeah, it is not easy. I went off on a little tangent there because John made me laugh, but yeah, my hope would be is that if 4K is released at NAB, they add more features. And then someone mentioned that they took the 1080p output from the ATEM, not using the encoder, and took it into the decimator 4K or any other sort of scaler, scale it up to 4K, and now it would leverage a better bit rate on YouTube. And so the quality would look better, even if you're only sending a 1080p signal. Technically, you're sending 4K to YouTube. So the compression's not going to be as bad. I think Topaz software can scale. There's a lot of softwares now that can scale, actually. So CapCut is one that like all of the content creators are using now if they're not like familiar with Premiere or After Effects. CapCut can scale. Topaz can scale. I've used it. It's not going to upscale a video live on the spot, though. I'm talking about more of like a live, in real time upscaling and encoding out somewhere. And yeah, it's pretty taxing on the computer, especially for longer form content. We've done it with a long, like 1 hour video, and that's one of those like set it and forget it overnight things. You're definitely not gonna wind up with an upscaled product a few minutes later. So I see you all joining in and watching, and I want you to know I'm here to answer questions. Anything about live streaming. I just happen to be making PTZ cables tonight, so you're joining me. You're along for the ride. Can Ecamm Live do it? I don't know for sure. I like Ecamm. I like what they do. I saw them many years ago in their infancy when they were first starting to feature bringing in virtual callers. But I don't know offhand. I will say that I'm very partial to hardware-based. This one live stream is like the only time right now that I'm trusting using software and web browser-based encoding. Like, this is just my webcam. Yeah, well, webcam is the one up top, so that's this one here, where you can see what I'm doing. And then the Sony ZV-E10. It's in 4K 30. It's going through a Rode Streamer X over here. This is the one time that I'm trusting software and browser-based, mostly just because this was very impromptu. I said, look, I'm going to make a cable tonight. Why not answer some questions while I'm at it, kill some time, maybe lose my voice. I'm really bad at that. I don't know if anybody else does any sort of stage presentation or anything like that, but really bad at losing my voice after like an hour. I think it's because I talk louder because I'm presenting and I don't normally talk that loud. So what's everyone want to know about PTZs and or live streaming? Still happy to answer your questions. I'm going to be here all night making this dang cable. Here we go. Here's a good one. Let's talk microphones. Would you trust and use Rode's Wireless Go 2 for a live stream? I have the Rode Wireless Go 2, and unfortunately, those types of microphones, I have seen them actually cut out simply because the body pack was hidden behind a human body. I don't mean that as in like we hit a dead body. I mean like the actual mic pack was in someone's butt pocket, and so the signal had to travel through the person because they were sitting to get back to the receiver end. And I got to tell you, it did not do a great job of traveling through a human with that signal. So I will mostly only use those for like sit down interviews because those transmitters will record internally. And then I can always go back and get that better quality version of the recording without any dropouts and just sync it up later. By the way, as you make these cables, you'll see the loom gets tangled a little bit. So sometimes you have to take the roll and twist it a bunch of times to untangle it. So that's why I usually sit it on the floor here, so it's easier. But yeah, good question. I like the Rode Wireless Go 2s. I think they're good mics, but you really have to be careful with the type of work you're using them on. For me, if it's a live stream, just with my particular clientele, I'm one of those people where it's like, I know how many things can go wrong on a live stream, and I don't want a lot of things to go wrong on a live stream. So for me personally, I'm going to pay an audio technician. My favorite audio guy's name's Mike. Mike will usually come in and I forget if he uses Shure packs or maybe Sennheisers, might be Sennheisers, but I will use the higher end wireless lavs for that. And he goes through all the work of like scanning the channels to see what frequencies are available in the area. So it's more than just like turn on some wireless lav packs and go. He really does a good job of like ringing out frequencies in the room that might cause feedback. But this is also typically when we're doing a live event. So he's running audio both for the room and for the live stream at the same time. And then good point, you brought up that the lav can unplug itself. Yeah, that's an unfortunate side with the more consumer grade lavs. Not so much with like the Sennheisers and things because they usually have a lock-in connector. But yeah, it's definitely something that would be my fear with using those. So again, like for an interview, I'm going to know if something comes unplugged and then I can just fix it in between questions, right? But if I'm live, the last thing I want to do is to make more problems for myself. So what lav mic do I recommend? So I will, again, I got to defer here to my audio professionals. I wish I had a good question or a good answer on that one. But they have great recommendations for what they use. And this is something where I will fully admit that I like being the live stream and the camera guy, and I like being good at what I do. But I will be the first to admit when I'm not the guy. And so I will always, always, always try to budget in for having an audio engineer on site who is live mixing that sound for me so that everything, it takes one more responsibility off my plate for making the show look and sound good. So I don't have the best answer for you there, but I have had good experiences with both Shure and Sennheiser, and I trust them quite a bit. And then on higher end productions, we've actually had times, only a few occasions, but we will put 2 body packs on one person so that in the event that something goes out, we can switch over to the other body pack. So just a thought there, if it's a really high end client, they're concerned, we'll sneak 2 body packs onto them. 2 lavs, and we'll have a backup. But thank you for the question. I'm sorry that doesn't fully answer the question there. And again, if anybody wants to see where we're at here in our progress, so here's my cable, still going, still probably, I don't know, we probably have still quite a good bit. Maybe if we're at 100-foot cable, we might be about halfway there, maybe 50 feet there. So that's where we're at on our PTZ cable making. And then, like I said before, what happens is as you pull this through, you really have to see it gets bunched up here, right? So you have to go through every once in a while and just pull it down the line. And just go down the line and keep pulling. Once you get to the very end, then you'll go through one more time to get all that out. And what that does is it's also tightening this sleeve. Because see how, like, if I compress this, right, it's all loose and stuff. But if I pull it, then it really tightens up around the cables. But yeah, I can't express enough having an audio engineer on site that knows what they're doing, because that allows me to really make sure that the show itself is running smoothly. They can worry about putting lav packs on presenters and speakers. They can worry about any feedback or noise in the room, as well as like the levels for the live stream. And I can just worry about making sure I switch cameras right, that the graphics go up when they need to, that the videos play back when they need to. So let's see. We're getting there, man. This is I figured this live stream would take me about 2 hours to get through all this cable, because there's just a lot to feed. It's really quick once you get it fed through. Like I said, it's normally about 50 minutes. It's different because I'm doing this as I'm talking. And I probably spent the first 15, 20 minutes of the live stream chit-chatting it up with you guys, and I'm still going here, but cable's still happening. Got another question here. Thoughts about wireless mics like the DJI Rode and others with attaching the transmitter to their shirt? To me, this is very tacky and not professional. Is there a better way of hiding? Yeah, I feel you on that one. So I have the Rode Wireless Go. I have those lavs. Most of my sit-down interviews now, I'm booming a shotgun mic overhead. The lav is normally only really a backup, and it's pretty rare that I use them unless I really feel like I need to. I think what you're going to see is that the content creators, the people on Facebook, on Twitter, or X, I'm sorry, Elon, on TikTok, on all of these platforms that video gets uploaded, you're going to see a lot of them using it because it's the cheapest wireless mic option possible, right? And actually just today or yesterday, Hollyland came out with their Lark Model 2, version 2, and it's tiny. It's like the size of a quarter. So I think the beauty of it is that they're going to get smaller, but do I hate how it looks when people do that? Yes. I think it looks absolutely horrible. Is the DJI mic better now and smaller? Yes, actually. Glad you bring that up, because I have the new Osmo Pocket 3 and I can show it to you. Boom, right here. So that's the Osmo Pocket 3. It's very, very tiny. You can plug in a mic to it, or you can use the built-in mic. And clipping something like this onto the shirt looks super tacky. And look how it hangs off my shirt. Like, this would be horrible. Or like, I'll see them clip it onto their hat, or some people think they're super cool and they'll like clip it onto their glasses and do something like that. Yeah, I want that fad to stop, but I don't think that fad is going to stop when it comes to social media. The hope is that people are professional enough that they don't do it in their pro videos. But who knows? I think, is there a better way of hiding? Yes. So that particular mic that DJI one and some of the Rode ones come with a magnetic attachment where you can put the magnet on the outside of the shirt and then the mic on the inside of the shirt. And it's a little bit better, but still with how big these mics are, I think the best way to hide is you actually plug a freaking lav into it. Use it the way you should be using it. Plug a lav into it, clip that back to your belt, or hide it behind your pants or whatever. But yeah, use it that way and just hide the lav. There's better mounting ways to mount a lav. Like there's different like tapes and things you can hide it in between the shirt and someone's chest. So I would recommend that. But then yeah, the like the new Hollyland one, that one is they're getting smaller. So I think what's going to happen is we will get smaller, and then I think that they will start to get better with giving us ways to hide them. But as with all of these, the DJI, the Rode, the Hollyland, they all print their logo on the front of it because it's brand recognition, and they are getting free marketing every time somebody does that. So I don't know that they're all necessarily incentivized yet to do that. We'll see where they go. But maybe if enough people complain or enough people start wrapping gaff tape around it to hide the logo, then that'll happen. Martin says, what length cables do you generally need and use? So it's hard to say generally because every event is different. My longer cable runs are 200-foot SDI reels. I have quite a few regular 100-footer SDI cables. For my PTZs, my original cable looms, so before I made these, are at 75. So this is going to take them up to 100 for me. I would say there's no general necessarily. I just have crates of tons of SDI cables in varying lengths. Everything from 3 foot up to 100 foot with the 200 footers being on the reels, on jack reels, if you're looking for a reel, jack reels on B&H. But I try to just travel with anything and everything. And I teach, I don't know if you've seen, I do have a course. It's called 6-Figure Live Streamer. But one of the things that I teach in my course, and I think this is important for everyone to do with a live stream, is when possible, do a site visit. Do a site survey. You want to show up to that venue with the client. You want to pick out where your tech table is going to go. You want to see where the cable runs are going to have to go. How far away is the power outlets? Where are you going to place your cameras? And bring a one of those laser measuring devices. You can get them at the hardware store, any sort of Home Depot or Lowe's. They're good for like 200 or 300 feet. And measure how far that's got to go. And that way and you can show up with the right cables. Obviously, always bring backups, always bring extras. But yeah, I have some 200-foot reels that I bring for the bigger stuff, 100-footers for the smaller stuff. And then obviously anything less than that, I always carry, 6, 10, 15, 12 foot, 20, 25 foot. I just have a variety. I get these red Husky crates from Home Depot, and I just stack 2 or 3 crates worth of cables and bring them with me, toss them in the car. Do you think long session live streaming might soon be a thing of the past due to people getting used to watching just shorts? Man, that's a good one. Marty, you're killing it tonight. My thoughts on long session live streaming. I believe that the events and conference industry, which is a lot of my long form streaming, is not going anywhere. There are always going to be people that want to and need to network, that need to learn, whether it's continuing education courses in the medical field or in any other field. So I think there's always going to be long events. And I think there's going to be an influx of need or want for those events to be made available, whether it's for watching later, like if you want to upload it to a platform, make a course out of it, or let people watch later. So whether they're streaming or not, I think using a switcher to run that event and record it is still going to be very much needed. When it comes to the content, there's a couple theories I have on that one. By the way, I'm just trying to untangle this mess. When it comes to the content, I think you're always going to have the people that want to look at the short form content, right? There's always going to be people that want to mindlessly scroll. But I think we're going to hit a point in the next 3 to 5 years where we're going to hit a point of diminishing returns, and we realize that it's just mindless and everyone's going to be so scrolled out. Like, everyone got zoomed out with COVID. And like, when it first started, everybody was like, oh, this is great. I can work from home. I don't have to put pants on, right? So I think over time, people are going to start hating it. I think short form content is still going to be good. It's still going to be useful. It's still going to be desired. And there's definitely going to be platforms that will monetize on that. But I'm not convinced that the long form is going to go away. For anyone joining in, again, I'm still working on making PTZ cables here. I'm just stringing this along. This is the worst part of it, the hardest part of it, the most time-consuming part of it. And then we get to the fun part once I actually get to the end. That's where we get to use the heat shrink and the heat gun. And we get to finish off these cables. But any questions as we go along? What's up, man? I know this guy. Thanks for stopping in, for saying hi. It's just a snowy, cold night here, and I thought I'd make some PTZ cables with all you. Oh, I'm glad you asked this question because I happen to have a YouTube video coming out on this one. It's with my editor right now. And what are your thoughts on using Adobe Podcast AI to clean up audio? Well, if you've seen my YouTube videos recently, like maybe in the last month, quite a few of them are already using Adobe Podcast AI. So I'm a fan, but I am not a fan of just popping the audio in there, uploading the audio, and letting it work its magic, and at full 100% intensity, taking that file back into my project. Reason being, it has sometimes miscorrected certain words where I've maybe mumbled or spoken softer, and it's made them sound different. So I typically will try to bring it down to about 80%-ish, bring it back into my editor, and then I will subtly try to keep the original audio below it, and we'll kind of layer that in as needed. Would this compare to other programs such as Hush Audio? So I'm not familiar with Hush Audio or Waves Clarity. The one that I've used more is Isotope. As far as a comparison goes, Isotope has been the gold standard in my eyes for quite a long time. But the ease of use with something like Adobe Podcast, man, to just upload a file and say, fix it for me and get something back in like 90 seconds. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. And AI is going to make our lives easier. I don't think it's going to take over. I don't think it's going to take away jobs. I think these tools are going to make things quicker so that we can turn around our work faster. And Adobe AI is definitely one of those. And I hope that they eventually get to a point where they increase that 4-hour time limit that they have. Because, man, it would be nice to just jam through and bulk upload a bunch of stuff and get a better sounding audio out of that. So anyone that's joining in, I'm working through here. We're getting there. We're towards the end of the line. It's just getting a little tangled up here. Trying to keep this clean. Franklin says, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for all the videos you have made. sharing knowledge and tips for free. I've learned a lot. I'm glad you've learned a lot. That's really why I did this. This was my one of my COVID projects. Was I wanted to teach people because I'm learning at the same time. I think the difference between me and probably some of the so-called gurus and experts out there is that there's still a lot that I don't know. And I will be the first to admit it. I will be the first to tell you I don't know everything. I learned everything that I know from other people. I learned from shadowing. I learned from watching other YouTube videos. I learned from just being on set and being around others that are doing this, and also learning too. This is an industry it's very interesting. Some people are afraid to share and to teach, but I've found a lot of value from the people who are willing to share and teach. And so, I think one of the best gifts I can give is to be one of those people too. So thank you, Franklin, for watching the videos. And again, I'll just throw my little not even a pitch out there, but just my little pedestal here. I do have a course. There's actually over 300 people in that course. If you didn't know, it's called Six Figure Live Streamer. And it's beyond just the technical. It does go over like all the basics with the ATEM switchers. So if you're just getting started, if you're trying to learn that, it's great for that. But it really dives into the client acquisition. It dives into the email templates, what I'm actually saying to clients, how I'm pricing everything. I actually recorded a sales call with a client, so you can see that and you can see what I'm doing all throughout the whole process. So that course is available for anybody, but again, like I said, no pressure. It's the website for that is streamingmastery.com. If you wanted to check it out, feel free. And really the reason why I did that was because a large majority of what I was teaching to people was redundant. It was over and over the same questions, right? And it wasn't just the tech side, it was the business side, it was the money side, it was the pricing side, it was talking about teams and how to outsource graphics and how to make content and how to run a show and how to help guide a client through the process from concept to showtime. So that's there. It's an option. No hard sells. It's got a great support group on Facebook where we answer all your questions too. And you've got access to me there because I'm active in that group and actively answering questions when I know stuff. And I'm also sharing things when I learn new things in there. And, I learn a lot of new things in my free time about the equipment that we all love to use because what you don't see behind me is on this shelf down lower is a bunch of gear that companies send to me, both for the YouTube channel and just for testing purposes. And so, I'm always learning. I'm walking the walk. I'm right here with you. And I'm always looking at ways to grow my live streaming and to make it better. My recent acquisition was the Blackmagic 2110 boxes. Haven't used them yet, but excited to use them. And then back here, I will tease that there is a V-mount battery from a company that I'll be testing that should be launched this week, actually. There's a wireless transmitter, and you can't see this. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is. There's a wireless transmitter from a pretty popular company that makes live wireless SDI and HDMI transmitters. The Osmo Pocket, obviously, that's the brand new Osmo Pocket 3. So, I'm here behind the scenes testing all this stuff too. And then what I do is turn around and kind of share it with you all. So I'm not just getting stuff for the sake of being like, oh, come buy this, make me more money. That's not how it works. I use all these things on my gigs, and then I'll flat out tell you whether I like it or not. Like the EarTech wireless intercoms, hate them. Hate them. Hollylands, love them. The Solidcom C1s, super light on the head. The EarTechs felt like a vice. It's like squeezing my head. I always had headaches after using them. So, you'll get nothing but honesty out of me. Marty says, With PTZ Director 1 software, you can control with great precision using just a game controller. Yeah, I like that. There's also David Joshua Ford, if anybody knows him. He's a friend, and he developed a macro pack for Companion and for using the Stream Decks. And they actually, he kind of cracked the code with getting the Canon PTZs on there and controlled by a Stream Deck. So if you're using those Canon PTZs, look out for that pack. I know he sells it online, and I know it's not super expensive. It's something to look into. I am going to come back to your questions all in about a minute or two. I see you in here. I'm going to take a minute to untangle some of this mess so that I can keep going and hopefully finish up this cord, hopefully in under 2 hours here. So give me like 60 seconds, maybe a little more than that. I'm going to be right back. I see your questions coming through, though. I'm going to answer them. So stay with me. Don't go anywhere. Just give me like 60 seconds to rest my voice. And I'm going to just straighten out the rest of the cord, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm still here. And I know you all have questions. I'm just trying to untangle my mess of making this cable. So, I would say I probably have about 20 feet left, give or take. We got some more questions coming through. All right, I'm going to grab your video magnet training because I really want to leave my 9 to 5 just to do video and audio. Your free trainings have been helpful, including the budget calculator. Well, thank you. The budget calculator is probably the big one. A lot of people don't know how to charge for their services, and it took what I learned over the last, been doing this professionally 14 years. So it took what I learned about pricing and what I've seen to be relatively standard across the industry with other professional videographers, and made it easier to understand. And for anyone watching, that's free. If you go to any of my other YouTube videos, I think it's also on the channel page itself, but in the description of most of my videos, you'll see a free pricing calculator. And the link is also on streamingmastery.com. That is all free. My gift to you. I'm just trying to help out. Because the last thing I want to do is to sell a course or a training or something, or even a consulting session for someone, and not have them get value out of that. So, if you're taking one of the courses or gone through any of the content that I've done, my goal personally is to get you at a point where that course pays for itself and you've learned enough that you would be able to say, hey, wow, I definitely got my money's worth out of that. So, if you're considering that, really, and I have a guarantee with all of these, by the way. My guarantee is I am not offended if you go through it and you decide it's not for you. I fully refund the money on it. And I haven't had to for 300 plus students that are in the 6-figure live streamer course. Maybe once or twice. And most of the time it was people who just came in with certain expectations that the course had certain content that it didn't. And I'm very transparent about what's in that stuff. So, again, if it's something you're not happy with, I'm also very keen to pay attention to the questions you have and to add more content to those courses. So I expand them as you guys give me more ideas and things of what you want to see in there. They're a constantly growing, living thing. So thank you for the support, but also just know that, I want you to eat. I want you to eat well. There was kind of a saying about that I want to kind of turn around. Actually, there was a saying of like, I want them to eat dinner too, just not at my table. And I've heard it used in a bad way, but I also want to say it in a good way. I think there's a way to turn that around. I want you to eat dinner, but I want you to be able to support your own table in the sense that I want you to be able to support your family and whoever you want at that table too. So just know that, and again, no hard sells, no hard pitches. I have this stuff out there. Again, there's a lot for free on the channel. The pricing calculator is totally free. A lot of free trainings in the videos. So thank you for everyone for the support. Next question. We're almost at the end. We're getting there. This crazy mess of a cable, but we're getting there. Tech question. NDI to NDI to SDI or HDMI converter into ATEM or separate cable runs? Cat6 and SDI to the switcher. Okay, for the PTZs, good question. So to reiterate, because I kind of read that question weird, the question is, do we consider just one Cat6 cable run from a PTZ camera to an NDI decoder, which then decodes it and converts it into either SDI or HDMI, depending on the switcher? And the beauty of that is it's just one cable to the camera, or the ones that I'm building right here, which have both SDI and Cat6 wrapped into one cable. The answer should be pretty clear, because I don't think I would spend the last 2 hours making these cables if I didn't see a value in them. But for me, I've found that if you're using NDI, you're going to run into some delay issues. And the delay is not going to be the same across the board. One camera might be a little more or less than the other one. So unless you are working with much higher end switchers than the Blackmagic ones, where you can actually delay each individual video feed, my vote is going to be on SDI and Ethernet being two separate feeds. Please hold one moment while I untangle this cable. All right, we are getting there. But yeah, thank you for that question. And ignore the sirens outside. Again, I can't use the good microphone because I need my hands free and my face free from the good podcast mic to keep going on this cable run. Any other questions while I'm hanging out with everybody tonight on a cold Tuesday evening? Snow's covering the ground. I had a gig today that got canceled. Any questions about cancellation? Any questions about how you do that? Any questions on pricing? Canon PTZ or PTZ optics? I hope PTZ optics isn't watching. I'm a Canon person. I've used the Canons. I've used the PTZ optics. I've used the Sony FR7, that mammoth of a PTZ. It's like 10,000. It's like 12,000 if you want a lens with it. It's crazy. Looks really nice. Worth the price? Hard to say. Looks great. Functions great. Canon PTZs with the autofocus tracking though. I hate that it's a $1,200 upgrade, but they sent me one to play with that had it installed and it had me convinced. Gotta tell you guys, looked pretty good. In getting into the business of live streaming, do you recommend with starting out as a one-man provider or a team, or team up with people? I'm going to say both, and let me explain. So when I first started, I was and still am a one-man band. My company is EMB Media. I am the only employee of this company. But when it comes time to give out 1099s at the end of this year for taxes, there's going to be like 16, 17 of them going out. So I work with freelance contractors all the time. And in fact, a lot of my work is actually other video companies that bring me on to handle the live streaming side. So believe it or not, 50% of my clients that come through the door are other video companies that bring me on as their live streaming person. So I say both because from a company standpoint, an expenses standpoint, I would recommend to stay as a one-man band for as long as you can. I see you, Andre. I'm going to answer your question in a second here. But there is a lot of power in teams. There's a lot of power in having people on your side where you can have referral partners. You can cover other people's backs when they're busy or double booked. So don't discredit having that on your side as well. Which is more worth the prize? I was probably talking about something in particular at that time when you said that. Which is more worth the prize? So if you can be more specific, I am happy to answer your question there. Maybe you were talking about the PTZs, which is more worth the prize. But let me know, and I'll come back to that one. Andre says, what cable are you making? Well, Andre, I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's done, because it sucks right now and it's a mess. This is what it looks like when it's done. This is both a Cat6 and SDI cable in one. So you can see the ends split off here, so I can plug in the SDI to my switcher separately from the Cat6 to my switch. But right here, you can see the heat shrink seal on the end, and then it becomes one solid cable. That's what it'll look like at the finish line, which hopefully we're getting to here soon. Like I told you all, this is the longest part, is feeding it through the cable. It's 100 feet. And basically, let me bring this back up. I haven't shown this in a while. This is my overhead shot. And then I'll tell you what I'm excited about NAB. So here's my overhead shot. Basically, I'm compressing this sleeve and getting it over top of the Cat6 and SDI cables here so that I can feed this on. But as you can tell, I'm only going a few inches bit by bit here. And so this is a really time-consuming part. So that's what I'm doing. NAB, let's answer that. I'm 50-50 on going to NAB this year. I'm probably, what's going to happen is I'll book it just in case. But if client work comes up, typically I will just go take the client work, because why spend money when you can make money? Especially in Vegas, you're going to spend a lot of money. I went last year. I loved it. I would love to be back. Would love, like, if I go back this year, I want to sit with all of you at dinner and talk shop. First drink is maybe on me. We'll see. Don't hold me to it. But I'd be happy to hold a meetup, get a bunch of people together for anyone else going. So yeah, NAB is a maybe. I'll probably book it, and then if work comes up, may have to cancel and go back on that. Most excited for one, probably making some new content just for the YouTube channel. Two, typically at NAB, I get to have a meeting with Blackmagic behind the scenes and a few other companies. So I like being able to do that, being able to have these private chats about the gear and the new stuff. Typically I'll get some details that not everybody else is going to get. And then we talk about, some gear that they might send me to play around with for the channel. So I'm learning more about how to be a influencer, as much as we hate that word. Not really for my own gain. It's really for all you. That's why I do the channel. It's for all your gain, for your benefit. I just kind of have fun doing it most of the time. So that's my answer on that one. Let's see this one. Have you ever thought about a way to make the PTZs completely wireless using wireless transmission? So it's not going to be completely wireless anyways, because you still got to run power to it unless you're putting like one of those Jackery batteries in place. But I get what you're saying. It would be nice to just pop a PTZ camera up on a stand, give it access to power, and then like connect over Wi-Fi. I like the wireless transmission options that are out right now. I have some wireless transmitters and receivers. They are not perfect. And DJI's wireless transmission is probably pretty top of the line, especially on their enterprise side, along with Teradek. And I know people are sitting here like, oh, DJI, like, why would they be top of the line on wireless? Because they're transmitting a feed from a helicopter in the air miles back to a screen in your hand. Show me a lot of other companies doing that. So I think that the technology is there. I think it exists. The harder part is going to be, one, we're going to get into a world that is really, it's going to have a lot of interference with signals. And so I'd be concerned about that because it's not foolproof. And look, I love the idea, right? If you could send like an SRT feed or something back, really fast transmission wirelessly, cool. But if I'm panning and tilting on a camera and trying to follow somebody across a stage, if that information going back to the camera can't make it like that, then we're going to have a problem because the cameras just aren't worth using because they're not going to track the person on the stage. So is the tech there? Probably. Are we going to see it for another 3 to 5 years? Doubt it. People are afraid of wireless, man. People are really afraid of wireless. We use it, but like I really do hold my breath every time that I use it because you just never know if the transmission is going to go out. So yeah, I think it's going to be an option eventually, but I think we're still a long ways out, and still you're always going to have to run power to the cameras anyways. Eddie, I personally like the idea of wireless transmitters, but can't afford to test them. So they're not too bad, depending on which ones. This one's at a pretty reasonable price point. Hollyland Mars 4K. That's a pretty reasonable one. The one that I use the most is from a company called Axoon. Check them out, Axoon. The cables that I'm making, these are Cat 6 and SDI. And if you scroll back a little bit on the chat, you'll see I actually posted some links to them if you're looking to buy those cables. And then I'm going to post a shorter video at some point in the next couple weeks where my editor went through and cleaned it up, and you don't see all this nonsense of me talking and answering questions live. But these are going to be Cat 6 and SDI cables. I'm using Belden 1855 cables, so they're super skinny. Makes my life easier when it comes to over-under wrapping these. But thank you for your question. We're getting towards the finish. This roll is almost there. I need to go through down the cable run here and see how it's all bunched up. So I need a minute to clear this out. I'm going to stand up and do this. You're more than welcome to see the shot as I do it. I'm just going to be probably quiet while I run through this. So feel free to watch. But we're just pulling this all down the line here because see, it gets all like knotted up. See, it's all bunched up there. So we're just going down the line, just pulling on it, and I'm tightening it as I go. So we just pull this down, and then it tightens it up as we go. All right, I'm going to answer this question here. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm kind of standing above the mic while I do this. Eddie says, how can I make cash flow with live streaming? I'm currently struggling to get customers with willingness to pay. So this is a multifaceted question, and I like this question, so thank you for that question. And I'm going to answer this for you here because it might take me a few minutes. So is the concern that you're having trouble getting clients, period? Or is the concern that you are giving them proposed pricing and they're going, oh, nope, too expensive? Let me know in the comments whether or not, because there are two different kind of ways to go about this. Is the concern pricing, or is the concern actually finding the clients? Like, have you gotten to a point where you go to the client, you're like, hey, we can do this, here's how much it costs? Or are you still at the point where you haven't even gotten the client in yet? Let me know in the comments, and once I see that come through, then I can answer better. Because everybody's in a different position and situation. Thank you all with your patience as I go through and keep working through this cable. I'm just tightening it down, and you can see more here. So I'm basically taking all this extra slack. I'm holding it and locking it off here at this end, and I'm just stretching it further down. And what this does is this is pushing it further down the cables and feeding it further down. But Eddie, if you can answer my question there, because I want to get back to you on this. And I think there's a few things we could talk about here. I think this is a great question. But is the concern here that you're actually making proposals to people and they're saying no? Okay, it's a little of both. I now do value-based pricing, but finding is also an issue. So let's start, and just bear with me, because when I do find a client and give them the price, they disappear. Okay. So let's start on the finding client side. Let me get my cables untangled here. Give me 1 sec. Cool. We're almost at the finish line. Let us start on the finding client side. On the finding client side, and I have a good free video about this on the YouTube. I love that this is my answer for everything because I've thought about these things and they're problems that you're not alone with. But if it were me and I had to go find new clients tomorrow, and I actually did this, I moved to a new city. Most people don't know this. I used to live in Baltimore in Maryland, and I moved to Virginia this past year. So I had some clients in DC, but I am starting over. So if I had to start over, or if I were in your position where I'm struggling to find clients, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to Google for my local chamber of commerce. There's one in every city and state in the US. If you're abroad, let me know, and then we can talk about that. It's a little bit different there. But I'm going to go to the chamber, and they are usually going to hold a networking meeting on a monthly basis. And what I'll do is I'll either go to that networking meeting, or I'll go to like their 101 or informational sessions. And if you're abroad, then we just have to find a local networking option near you. One of those is called BNI, Business Networking International. It is international. It's in a ton of different countries. It's like over 100 countries. And what you do is you show up to the event, you get some cards, you dress up nice, you show up early. And the first thing you do is you talk to the event organizer. So whether it's maybe the person checking people in at the door, They probably have a name tag on. They seem to know everybody. Because your first goal is to become friends with the super connectors. It's not to become friends with the people in the group. You want to be buddy-buddy with the super connectors, the person that knows everybody in the group. Because then you've just made your first referral partner. You want to be friends with the guy that knows everybody, because that's the person you want to be the most memorable with. And you mentioned you're overseas. If you want, if you feel comfortable, feel free to mention where you're located. And then live on the spot, I can try to do a little more digging for you. But if I were in the US, if I were anywhere else, I'm going to these networking events, bringing business cards, showing up early, staying late, dressing up nice. And what I do is I don't try to sell a single person on my services. Not a single one. My goal in those meetings or those events is to meet people and to become likable and to become trusted. I can mention what I do, can talk about my services, but I try to become an interviewer. See, many of us are filmmakers, we're videographers. We should be good at interviewing. I want to get to know you. Do you have any kids? Where'd you go to school? What do you do for work? What do you like to do in your free time? What sort of problems does your business have? Where do you struggle? How long have you been coming to the networking event? How long have you been, networking? Have you found other clients here? Have you found value here at this networking event? And I'm just making friends. And then what I'll do, I'll collect business cards. I'll collect, hey, it's been great chatting with you. Want to talk some more? Maybe we'll get a coffee. Cool. Sounds great. Here's my card. Great. And immediately the next day, I will usually do it that night, and I'll schedule the email to go out at 8 a.m. the next day in Gmail. Send them an email. Bring up something you guys talked about. Make it personal. Hey, Eddie, it was great talking to you yesterday. I know you mentioned that you like going out golfing on the weekends. I've never been golfing before, but I imagine that's probably pretty relaxing. It's a nice thing to do on the weekends when you're outside of work. Speaking of which, if you have some free time outside of work, would love to go grab coffee with you, grab a drink, happy hour, anything, insert there, and let's talk. And Eddie, this is something that I teach in the course, in Six Figure Live Streamer. It's also something that I talk about a little bit in my much cheaper course. But like I said, I'm an open book here. I'm not keeping anything behind closed doors. And that would be my first step, is building as many relationships as possible, getting as many meetings on the calendar as possible. Because what happens is when you put those meetings on the calendar and you meet as many people as you can, you become memorable and you build trust. And when people like, know, and trust you, those three things have to happen. When they like, they know, and they trust you, then they're going to be more willing to refer work your way. And I've had people where I meet them and I think it goes nowhere. And 3 years later, somebody calls me and says, hey, Eddie referred me your way. And then usually I think to myself, who the heck is Eddie? Because it's been 3 years. And I go back and I look through my emails and I go, oh yeah, I went to coffee with that guy 3 years ago and he must have remembered me. So that's goal number one. Now you mentioned you're in Panama. So here's what I'm going to do real fast. I'm going to Google Panama Business Associations. And let me take your question down off screen here. The first thing that comes up when I Google Panama Business Associations is the AACCLA. And it's actually part of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Look at that. So when I started talking about chambers of commerce, and it is the Association of American Chambers of Commerce in Latin America and the Caribbean. And they have a Panama executive director listed right on their website, Susanna from, I'm going to say this wrong, AmCham Panama. And I'm assuming that it stands for American Chamber of Panama. But she's got an email. There's a website for panamcham.com. And when I go to that website, they have a full chamber. They have a website that talks about membership. They have committees. They have events. So if I go look at their upcoming events, looks like they don't have anything on the calendar for January. That's okay. And maybe they're bad at updating this on their website. So what you do is you go and you contact that director who's listed on there, and you say, hey, I want to come to your next event, but it looks like your website didn't have anything up on the calendar. And don't stop there. If they say, you know what, sorry, we don't have any events, you say, what if I throw one? I'll throw a happy hour, networking happy hour. We'll meet at a bar, get a few business people together. Why not? You guys have the platform. You have the audience. I'll show up and run the event. Now you are at the forefront of this networking event. And that's just one example, but if I go to those Google results from Panama Business Associations, there's PanamaBusinessClub.com, the #1 business club in Panama, connecting the Panama business community. Sound like somewhere that you might want to be affiliated with? So you can join as an individual member, corporate member. It's really that easy. And I found that in 2 seconds. 2 seconds. And then you said, so I'm thinking about getting leads, getting clients, and also getting them to pay. Some clients which are interested, they understand it's a good quality work, but then they respond that they can't afford it. This to me says that there's 2 things for you to learn when you're on your sales calls. The first is the word value. When you're on your sales calls, if people say no, or say it's too expensive, or disappear, it means that you weren't able to provide enough value or to show the value in your services while you were on the call. And if they say yes, then it means you showed the value. The second thing is, it typically means that you didn't figure out what problem it is that your services solve. So a lot of people don't think this way because we weren't all naturally born business owners. And I wasn't either. I had to learn this. There's a really good book called Spin Selling. You can check it out. It's a really easy read. Highly recommend it. But if they don't understand the value of your services, then yeah, they're not going to buy, right? Like if I show up to a burger joint and I'm like, why should I buy your burger? And you're like, it's really tasty. And I'm like, but I'm not hungry. Then I'm not going to buy it because your value was that this burger tastes really good, but I'm not hungry. So I'm not going to buy it. It doesn't solve a problem for me. Which takes me to that second part, which is that you need to be able to get on these calls with these clients and to find out why they really want a video. And if they didn't come to you asking why, and they're just trying to learn what you can do, you need to figure out what their problem is. At the end of the day, everyone's selling a product or a service, right? So you need to find out what their issue is with getting that product or service to sell more. Why isn't your product selling? Why isn't your service selling? And that's just through questioning. Tell me about the obstacles you've had. What type of marketing have you done in the past? Have you worked with a video person in the past? How'd that go? Oh, you did work with somebody? Why did you stop working with that person? What happened there? And that's where you need to become the expert in your field, is to learn how you can create videos that solve problems for people and how you can position those videos and show the value of those videos as something that's going to solve their problem. Now, video is not going to fix everything. It's not. It doesn't work that way. Does it take quite a few problems off the table in marketing and sales. Yep, sure does. So those are the two biggest things that you want to learn. So everyone's probably wondering, because we're now 2 hours and 4 minutes into this live stream, and I've been putting this dang cable together. You've probably been wondering, when the heck is this guy going to be done making this cable? That's how much is left. So in about the next minute or two, you all are going to see a magic trick where we actually finish up this cable. Okay, maybe 5 minutes. If anybody magically has been here for full 2 hours, let me know in the comments, because I'm a fan of you if you've been here for 2 hours and listening to me ramble. Eddie thought that I was wrapping cables up. I am actually making these cables. Yeah, so this is what it's going to look like when it's done. It'll be a full reel inside of this casing that I have. And once I finish getting the very little that's left onto this cable, we can actually use the heat shrink. I can switch back to my overhead camera, and I'll show you how I seal off the ends of these cables. Because it's kind of fun. Not going to lie. You get to use a heat gun. So we're almost there. Thank you all for the questions. I really do appreciate that. They've been fantastic questions. I might have to cut some of this stuff up into shorter content. I just wish that I was actually like looking at the camera when I delivered it. And I want you all to know I'm not trying to avoid you guys. Just trying to look at what I'm doing. Yeah, Eddie, that network is there. It is. It's right there in front of you. It could just be a little bit of not knowing where to search, and that's okay. Nobody teaches this stuff. That's why I'm teaching it, because someone didn't teach me, and I had to figure it out. But when people say, look, I'm in a different country, doesn't matter. All these principles still work the same way. Human psychology is all the same. Doesn't matter where you live. The brain still chooses to buy something the same exact way if you are in India or if you are in Alabama. You might buy different things, but you still choose. You make your buying decisions the same way. The psychology is all the same. All right, who wants to see how we finish off this dang cable? I have maybe a few feet left. And actually, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some of this excess because I want to leave about 2 feet on each end. So I may get a lighter. I'm going to cut some of the excess, and I'll use a lighter to sear the edges of it. And I will try to show that on my overhead camera here in just a moment. Who's still with me? Who's still awake? We got 12 people. Where's everybody actually watching from? I don't know what time zone everybody's in. For me, it's 8:30 in the evening over here. Let me know where you're watching from and what your time zone is. And then I promise you, I promise the last thing I was trying to do was to make this take 2 hours. I really do. I wanted to answer your questions, but the other 2 cables took me about an hour apiece. The difference was I wasn't talking. I was listening to music and tuning out and doing my thing. All right. I'm going to get about 1 to 2 more feet on here, and then we're going to cut off some of this excess. And then I'll show you what we do. All right, so Eddie, you're in the same time zone as me. Who else is with us? Show me some love in the chat. Portugal, frankly, man, you need some sleep. It's 1:30 in the morning. What are you doing? And it's a weeknight. Don't you have work tomorrow? Thank you for being on. I hope you really want to see what the end of this looks like when we're done. All right, so here's how much I have left. It's probably about 3 feet, so I'm going to give it maybe one more foot. I don't want to take off too much. I just know from experience that I've typically had to cut off somewhere around this much when we're all said and done. So, all right. We're at about 3 feet left. Okay. I need a lighter so that I can sear off the ends of this, and I'll show you why. Let me grab the lighter. Let me grab some scissors. We're going to make a little bit of a mess here. Give me, let's call it 60 seconds so I can go find that lighter, and I will be right back. Okay, I am still here. Let me get my chat window back up so I can see what you're all saying. Sound 4 Pro Audio. I recognize that name. Little late there in the evening in the UK, huh? Andre's in California in traffic. James found me at 1:30 in the morning. Thank you, James. Australia, welcome. So for those of you joining in, or those of you amazing and wonderful people that have been with me for the last 2 hours answering all of your beautiful questions, I am making a PTZ camera cable that consists of both Cat 6 and SDI. And boy, do my arms hurt because we are at the finish line here. And what I'm doing is I'm stretching this cable sheath so that I can get all this excess out of it. So basically, I'm just pulling this further down the line to tighten it up. The reason why I'm doing that is because we're pretty much done. We've got to the end. And this is a 100-foot cable. And this is my last apology for not using a good mic. It's really just because I can't sit my face up next to the nice podcasting mic while I'm trying to do all this mess. But I'm going to show you a overhead view of this in just a moment. So I've gone ahead and I've brought the cable to what is the end. Now you can see it in focus. There is a discrepancy in cable length. I talked about this at the beginning. So the Cat 6 cable is about 6 inches shorter than the SDI cable. We're going to probably pull this down just a little bit further. But before I do that, because that's really the last thing that's left, I wanted to show you all how I sear off this end, because this is our other end. So for those of you just watching, I taped the two cables to a wooden skewer that I then pushed through this cable loom. This is the excess. So the cable loom is roughly 100 feet. The cables are roughly 100 feet, but I want about 2 or so feet on either end so that the cables can be split off. The Cat 6 cable to my switch, the SDI cable to my switcher. Now, here's the tough part when you go to cut this stuff. It makes a mess. And I'm going to go ahead and show you my overhead shot here. So let's bring this in. All right. So I want to cut this cable here and remove all this excess, right? And it's gonna make a mess because all these little like plastic fibers here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some electrical tape and I'm gonna tape off the end for where I wanna cut it. So let's take like this much. All right, some electrical tape. I'm gonna wrap this really tight around here. And I probably had a little more extra tape than I needed. But this is gonna help me prevent the whole dang thing from fraying when I start to cut it. All right. So I'll cut off the excess. Yeah, if you guys are making these cables, they're a pain. That's why I live stream tonight with everybody. All right, so you see here I got my electrical tape. This is gonna help prevent it from fraying. I'm gonna cut it about 1 inch away or so, and then we're gonna burn and sear the ends here. I'm gonna use my masking tape to tape this down. Yeah, I'm gonna use a lighter. Thank you, Franklin. But you can't just use a lighter right away. When you cut this, you'll see it gets really, really messy. That tape might not work. Probably need a gaff tape. All right, let's do this like so. All right. So I'm gonna cut this about there, okay? You'll see, it's gonna get messy. All right. So you can see it starts to fray pretty quickly. So that's where our lighter comes into play. And we're gonna melt this, sear the ends, and do it pretty good because we don't want this to keep unraveling. All right. So I've got that seared, and let me get this camera shot switched over so you can see it a little better. So it's right. We're gonna try to get it in focus there. All right, now you can see the sear. Okay. So now that that's seared, I'm gonna pull off my electrical tape. That was just kind of a placeholder. And we're gonna push the rest of this through. And it might be tough here because we seared it a little bit, but you can see it's starting to come through. And just like at the beginning, that was the hardest part, was getting it over the connectors. We might have to cut this just slightly because it looks like it's melted together a little bit. Thank you all for watching, for staying up, for joining on this adventure. All right, we're getting there. We're getting there. There's like one little piece that's stuck. There we go. And this is really hard to do when you're trying to film it too. Really not easy. All right. Haha. All right, we are through. All right, you see that? We made it through. James asks, any thoughts on the Barco switchers? I haven't looked at the Barcos, so I don't know that I have the best info on them just yet. I'm definitely down to check them out. All right, so see, I pulled the skewer out. This is where we're gonna seal our end with the heat shrink. So here's my heat shrink. I'm gonna cut that piece in half, so there's one for this end, one for the other end. And we can get our skewer out of here. I'm gonna use my use some of my tape here just to hold this on the end. All right, I'm gonna hold that there while I get the skewer off. This was our masking tape job from earlier. 2 hours ago. Yeah, I don't have experience with the Barcos, so I can't speak about them. I will say if I go to NAB this year, my eyes are definitely going to be on those switchers. Among others, Grass Valley, the higher end ones. I'm always trying to one up my game. Not that I'm trying to drop $100,000 on a switcher, but I want to know what's out there. Who's excited to actually see the end of this where we heat shrink this whole thing and this end is finally done, and then I'll heat shrink the other side, and then I might have to grab myself a drink because it is now 9 o'clock over here. We started this thing almost 2.5 hours ago. Sorry it's out of frame. We're just trying to get this skewer off. This was my tool that I used to feed our cable through. Use our scissors there. Yay! All right, we're free. So the skewer is now done. It's out of service, no longer needed. This is what the end of my cable looks like with this. So we need to get our heat shrink over the ends and sealed onto here. Here's how we're going to do this. So, and by the way, I measure, I'm roughing this out, but I usually leave about 2 feet or so that these cables can be pulled apart. So this can go to something else and this can go to something else. That's what I'm doing here. All right, I need to get my heat gun. Sounds so fancy. The heat gun, we're gonna get that plugged in. This heat gun is on Amazon. It was like $20. Again, when I put out the final video, I'm gonna link to everything. So that's plugged in. That takes very little time to heat up. So really all I need to do is to get my shrink wrap tubing over top of this. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna cut it roughly in half down the middle. So I'm gonna guess here, right about there. Okay. So one for one side, one for the other. Almost the same length. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now we need to get this over top of these connectors. So Ethernet first, then the SDI slides through. I'm gonna pull this up here. Okay. Masking tape is gonna come off. This is gonna slide over. The edge is gonna be roughly halfway through. Heat gun is gonna shrink it, and that is it. Here's my warning. Heat guns get hot. Don't burn yourself. Don't be stupid. Kids, don't try this at home. All right, masking tape's coming off. And I do recommend to use masking tape when you do this. It just makes it so much easier to get this stuff off. All right, heat shrink roughly halfway through. All right, so right about there. Heat gun, we're gonna heat it up and not burn ourselves. So it's on. Might take a minute to heat this up and start shrinking. There we go. Try to get it as even as you can. Sorry if this is loud. You can see we're starting to get some shrinking going on. I'm going to rotate this about 180 degrees so I can try to get to the other side here. Just get this to melt evenly. One thing that you want to be careful of is as you get closer to this end, don't heat it up too much because it will start to melt this braiding and then it's going to come apart. So just be careful here when you get to this side. You can see we're getting there. Of course, this will be hot when you're done, so just be careful. All right, that is one side of the braid done. Now what we need to do is basically stretch this whole thing tighter all the way down the line. I'm going to come back and join you guys. While I do that, we're going to go through the whole cable. I love that you all are talking and hanging out here with me. We are almost done. So you can see it starts to melt just a little bit at the end here. So just be careful when you get there. You don't want it to melt too much. And we're going to tighten this all the way down the line. So all 100 feet of cable. Take this off screen. I'm going to grab a drink. If you have any more questions as we go. I like that you guys are hanging out chatting about the Barcos. I want to learn more about them. It's just not really my specialty at the moment, but I'm always open to learning. So this is kind of the sucky part. We've got to go all the way back down the cable here. Tighten all this stuff. Any final questions as we're getting towards the finish line here? Even if it's not about the PTZ cables, if it's about the business of streaming, pricing strategies, clients, anybody have something to share? I never thought that this would take 2.5 hours. The last two that I did were only took me, 55 minutes, an hour maybe. But as you can see, I'm just going through to fix this. So I'm just trying to get all of that excess out and tighten it up. What's your must-have tool in your Pelly? Better question is, which Pelican? I got a lot of them. Mine is the Blackmagic Video Assist 12G. Mine is the Decimator MDHX. I swear those things are magical. I never thought that I would be so worried when they were really hard to find during the pandemic because they were back ordered forever. Now I think they still are again. But yeah, definitely MDHX. Favorite thing. Use that for all sorts of troubleshooting. It's not just for conversion. What you do is you can set them in the settings. You set the time code to free run. And then there's an option to set it so that it outputs a color if it is not getting a feed. And it is one of the coolest troubleshooting things that I've ever used that has saved me so much headache. I'm just pulling through this excess here. It looks like I somehow managed to get a knot in my cable that I'm fixing really quickly. But yeah, Decimator MDHX. Jake's got a question. But when my hands are free in 2 seconds, I'm going to put it up on screen. Jake says, just got an innovative Apollo cart. Have you used for your live streaming gigs? I like those carts. I use rock and rollers. I use a rock and roller cart. I've been a big fan of them for a while. They fold down really nice and compact. And then I get some bungee cords and I get a, what's that thing called? They have these rock and roller bags, these grip and gaff bags. Grip and gaff. They make these bags that slide over one of the ends. And then that's how I can put all my tripods and light stands and things into it. I like the innovative carts. They're really pricey. That's really the only reason why I haven't done it yet, because the rock and roller holds just as much stuff. All right, so now I'm at the other end of the cable, but we have some excess, and this is a little bit of a pain, but I'll fix it while I'm talking to you guys because we're live, and we're gonna fix this. So same sort of deal with the other end. I have to basically cut off the excess and then sear the end. It's kind of annoying though when you already have your cables run through it. So what I did in the past was I actually taped off an end. I took like a little razor blade and sliced through the excess cable, and then I didn't sear it off. I just put the shrink wrap right over top. So I'll have to figure that one out here. Might do this one off camera once we're done because it's been a long live stream. Yeah, 40 decimators at work. MDHX Cross V2s. Yep. They work great. I love them. They're the best. What do you think of Atomos Sumo 19? I've seen a lot of quality concerns on the Sumos. Most of my monitors I use are the Feel World monitors or C-Tech monitors. The C-Tech broadcast ones come in a nice broadcast case. Haven't used the Sumo myself, but I've just seen enough annoying stuff about it that seems to make it not worth it for me. So that's my take. Could be biased people leaving opinions. I don't know for sure, but I tend to trust reviews on things. If someone says it's annoying, there's a good chance it could be annoying. So I still use my Shogun 7. It records up to 4 feeds at one time. So I am going to finish off this cable. It's pretty much done. There's just a little bit of mess here left. But this is what it's going to look like when it's done. All nice and wrapped up with a couple Velcros around it. You basically get your ends separated and then the single cable loom all together as one. Looks like James has one more question. I'm going to do that I'm going to answer that before I kill off the live stream, and then I'll probably finish off the rest of this cable off air so I can give my voice a rest as well. James said, what is the biggest gig mistake and what is the biggest gear mistake you have made? Man. Biggest gig mistake? Very rare that it's been a gig mistake because we really do prep a lot. I mean, we've had things go wrong on gigs. We've had, virtual participants drop out. We've lost signals before. I've had some dumb things where I'm just not monitoring audio. And there was one time where we went live with no audio, and I think someone wanted to reset the encoder while we were live and start it again, which really sucked because we had already gained an audience. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think on that one because a lot of my mistakes are more business based and growing the business. Gear mistake. Okay, I got a good gear mistake. I was building a rack mount unit, and I had put in a dual monitor, and I had also had a pull out 1RU, but a 17 or 16 inch monitor. And I accidentally swapped power cables and fried both of them. So $700 monitor plus another $400. It was a $1,000 mistake. Fried both of them using the wrong power adapters. That was pretty bad. Had to buy new ones. Oh well, lesson learned. Yeah, that was a bad one. Eddie says, my mistake on gear is using 300 feet HDMI cables with boosters. Yeah, they work, but it adds a lot of stress. Yeah. SDI, man. SDI or fiber is the way to go. So, we are at the end here. 2.5 hours. I've answered a lot of questions for you all. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you stayed up, if it's 2 a.m. your time, thank you for being here, for supporting. All I can ask is before you leave, there's a little thumbs up thing there. There's a subscribe there. If you're not subscribed to me, please do subscribe. If you haven't hit that thumbs up, that just tells other people that this is actually worth watching. All these little things, if you watch my videos and you don't hit the thumbs up, it's one little thing right under the video. If you could do that for me on a few videos, that just really helps the algorithm to know which videos are worthy of showing to other people. And it's just one small way you can say thank you to me. And I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you all for staying up, and be on the lookout because I filmed the last time I made one of these cables. We're editing it. It's going to be much shorter. It's going to have all the parts list in it for everything I used. And if you want to do it yourself, then video will be here. So thank you all. Hope you have a wonderful evening wherever you are. And if you're looking to learn more, if you want to jump into the pricing calculator, it's on streamingmastery.com. And I will see you all in the comments and maybe at NAB next year. All right, folks, thank you very, very much for all being here. Have a good evening.